I'd like to call to order the board meeting of Geneva Community Unit School District 304 from Monday, July 14th, 2025. Bonnie, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
All right, welcome everyone to our meeting. We'll move on to the pledge. The flag is in the corner there.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and for our guests tonight, we do have a attendance sheet out in the lobby area if you care to sign in. Moving on to item number 2, approval of the minutes. We have 2 different sets. We have the regular session from June 16th, 2025 and the executive session for June 16th, 2025. Bonnie, did you receive any changes or corrections? Does anyone have any at this time? All right, do I have a motion to approve both versions of the minutes as presented in our packet?
So moved.
Second. Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the minutes pass. Moving on to item number 3, recognition, awards, presentations, and public hearings. We have the 2025-2026 tentative budget. Mr. Latham, take it away.
All right, thank you. All right, so spent a little bit of time this evening talking with our finance committee about the tentative budget. It goes from 25 to 2026, starting July of 2025, and the budget will conclude on June 30th of 2026. It's commonly referred to as our fiscal year 2026. So a little bit about the timeline. I came before the board with different members of the school district to give presentations on our technology plan in January, our transportation plan in March, our operations and maintenance budget in April, and then I concluded our preliminary presentations with the education fund in May. The draft budget came before you in June. Tonight we're here to talk about our tentative budget. After that time, I'll put it on display for 30 days from August 1st to August 31st. It's a chance for the public, if they wish to make comment, to come in and leave those for me, either for or against the budget or just comments in general. And then I will come back before the Board of Education on the September 8th meeting, requesting final approval and adoption of the budget for the next fiscal year. At that time, we'll have a public hearing to cover any statutory obligations and receive any other further testimony, not only from the board but the public. So a little bit about the items that we'll be looking at. Our revenues, those are primarily from taxation, but also include fees that we would collect through things like registration or parking. Our state funds are mostly 2 categories. They are typically evidence-based funding, which is a level of support provided to us financially from the state of Illinois, and also any type of grants that we would receive. Our federal funds, largest portion of that comes through our IDEA grant for special needs. And then our expenses are our salaries, the compensation we provide our employees, the benefits that we provide, mostly 2 types, health benefits and then also pension obligations. Our purchase services are services that we require of a professional nature. Those are areas such as our legal, our engineers, our architects. And then lastly, our supplies and materials are those items that we typically use to get through the year and replace, that our maintenance typically does for ongoing care. Our capital outlay are items that we purchase over $3,000. Our other objects are typically tuition. Those also include our debt service payments and transfers. And lastly, our capital equipment is under $3,000, which is our smaller equipment, weed eaters, things like that. Our fund balances are estimated at this time until we actually have our external audit, and we hope to have better numbers for you and final numbers in September. So a little bit of our considerations. We always track our equal assessed value. That's the property value for the community that we tax against through the levy process. We looked at the 2024 estimated levy amounts. Those are received in 2025. The May-June go into the current fiscal year, and the July through usually October and November go into the 25-26 year. And then we review the tax receipts to see how they land. We always look for them to be somewhat equal, 50% in one fiscal year, 50 in the other. But as I mentioned earlier, with escrow, some of those payments are done early, so it doesn't always come out that way. So I think we're looking more at about a 52-48 split this year, so I had to adjust the budget. You'll see that number in the revenue. It's mostly through the taxation. Our personal property replacement tax is actually a business tax, and that's been diminishing over the last couple of years through changes in law and collections. And then lastly, I'll review our school fees after registration completes, and that includes other things like our athletic participation. We have reduced the interest income for two reasons. We have less money to invest this year because we're spending down some of our fund balance. Also, there's a reduced return on investment. Our state revenue is our evidence-based funding, as I mentioned earlier. It also includes our title grants. We will have to estimate any carryover dollars that were unspent that go to the current incoming fiscal year. And our ALOP is our alternative learning opportunity programs that has increased as well. And lastly, our federal grants at this point in time are somewhat unknown because of the process. So these are some of the expenditure considerations. I typically budget with the anticipation of all FTEs in the budget, including part-time employees. Our benefits are our federal taxes that we collect and pass on to the federal government. Our Medicare, the IMRF and TRS are actually the two pensions that we're obligated to. And then our health insurance is our HMO PPO plan, but also includes dental and life. Our purchase services I mentioned are essentially professional services that we require outside of the district. Our supplies and materials could be affected by inflationary costs and availability. Our capital outlay are the items thresholds seen on the screen. And I mentioned already what our other objects include, and our non-equipment is under that amount. So we'll also have end of year 2025 transactions. Reminder that we're an accrual, modified accrual for our accounting, which means the auditor has up to 60 days past the close of books, June 30th, 2025, to accrue something back into the current year. And that is always at the auditor's discretion. And lastly, tonight we'll look at our capital plan and our life, health, safety improvements. So here's a little bit about the education fund and our estimated budget revenues. So in the education fund, looking at our local, state, and federal revenue on the right-hand column under the tentative budget, we estimate receiving $82,448,022 in estimated revenue. Our tentative budget for expenditures did increase from the draft budget. It's now estimated at $83,816,854. I mentioned earlier that there were some changes in the purchase services. One of those is always look at the grant dollars that we have and adjust those from year to year. I did have to increase our food service, just the cost of food and labor. I also increased some of our contractual nurse obligations. We have to hire those out of district when we have a need for a nurse. I did include that, and it did increase, as well as the fact that our copy services contract will be up and we'll have to renegotiate that, so that also increased our purchase services as well, which is our largest increase. So overall, the education fund estimates its beginning balance at $30,068,665, adding our revenue minus our expenditures, and the need to transfer funds to Fund 20 for capital projects. I estimate the ending fund balance of the Ed Fund at $25,735,833. Since the operations and maintenance fund, it did increase from the draft budget to $15,823,129. Again, much of that was due to the adjustment of taxes. This is the tentative budget for O&M for the estimated expenditures. I did reduce that in the salary area. I mentioned earlier that we did have some positions that we're not going to fill. We also had some retirements, and we replaced those with employees that had a lower starting salary threshold. So that estimated expenditure is at $13,941,697. Looking at our operations and maintenance fund, we estimated the beginning balance at $8,399,085. We anticipate the need for transfers in from the education fund and the transportation fund as well, minus our expenditures, and we anticipate the fund balance of being at $5,780,515. We will move from the fund balance $7,729,000 to the operations and maintenance fund. I'm sorry, to the capital projects fund. Our debt service pretty much remains the same, just an adjustment on the revenue side just for the taxation. The expenditures reflect our bond and interest payments. So starting at $8,309,970, adding our revenue, minusing our estimated expenditures. The fund would likely close at $8,903,000. This is our transportation fund. I did adjust some of our local revenue again based upon taxation, but it's estimated at $4,666,904 as the estimated revenue. The expenditures are at $5,028,186. Just a few changes in there after I viewed some of our financials for the prior fiscal year. I will point out the capital outlay of $1.4 million reflects our transportation plan of purchasing more buses and replacing our fleet. So this beginning balance is at $5,038,067. I've noted our revenue and our expenditures. The $229,000 would include adding the second propane tank out there, as well as some improvements needed for the parking area, ending at $4,447,785. Retirement fund remains the same. Expenditures remain the same, and so we would end up with $4,139,585 from our two retirement funds. So one is FICA Medicare and the other one is IMRF. Our capital projects, we only have revenue that's basically interest income of $125,000. To fund the capital projects is a transfer approved by the board, so we would anticipate $3 million from the education fund. $229,000 would flow through from the transportation fund, but we would need an additional $4.5 million from the operations and maintenance fund to fund the entire capital projects. Revenue needed of $7,729,000. We anticipate expenditures of $8,034,379 to cover all of our capital projects and our construction and improvement needs. So we would begin with $1,203,809, adding in our $125,000 of interest income, our $8,034,379 of our expenditures. We would need the transfers to help make most of this work, leaving a fund balance of $1,023,430. This leaves us an adequate amount to absorb any changes and change orders or costs beyond what we estimated. The working cash fund is an investment fund, so the $659,000 just reflects our return on investment for the year. We have no expenses from that fund, so it would increase, having an ending fund balance of $17,608,315. The TOR fund is a liability fund. It just accumulates interest income, and it would end up with $35,701 at the end of the fiscal year. So lastly is our fire prevention and safety fund. We help $20,000 in interest income. We have $126,647 of improvements this year. I'll go over those later tonight in the capital plan. So we will reduce the beginning balance from $600,569 to $493,922. Earlier in the presentation to the Finance Committee, the question came up is why this fund balance has changed over time. I mentioned that when we levied for the whole 10 years of the Life Health Safety Plan, which has A, B, and C projects, and that will be spent out over time. So I do the levy one time and then I spend it down. It doesn't mean we may need to come back for some changes. Some things occur that we have to make improvements, but the intention is to draw this fund balance down over time. So what could change? A change in payments or taxes. Our enrollment could go up or down, which impacts our fees that we receive. Our grant funds. We have a claim that will go in this week from the end of June. It'll give me basically what the carryover dollars are, so I'll reassess our funds. It also could be affected by our reimbursement rates from the state of Illinois, or what they call categorical payments. We typically get 4. In some years we've only gotten 2 of those from the state. So that's one thing could always change our finances, and then any federal changes for federal funding. As you know, that's one of those areas that seems uncertain. Our expenses could change if we're understaffed, and we have overestimated salaries, but estimated appropriate for that point of time. Any post changes in our benefits. So, for example, we could have an employee that left that was single insurance, and an employee that comes in as a family that has a greater cost. any changes in overages to our purchase services or changes in our projects. Their supplies and materials could change based upon the CPI, as we've learned in the past, or any changes in tariffs. Our capital, and I'll give an example of that. So we did have tariffs that were applied to our school buses this most recent year, just because not all the parts are made in the United States. So there's an example of how tariffs have already impacted some of our budgeting. Lastly, capital outlay is often affected by our supply chain, our availability, or our weather. Our other objects could be changes in our tuition. We, of course, provide tuition to Mid-Valley and to our co-op and also our career center. And lastly, just unforeseen breakages in equipment, just from wear and tear or they wear out. And lastly, just a reminder that our fund balances can be changed through the accrual process by the auditor. I need to tighten my slides here. The last column's $20,000. So the estimated total revenue for 25-26 is $122,169,923 against our estimated expenditures of $128,577.990. The last line is our fire prevention on there. So this is the estimation at this point for our tentative budget. We anticipate a beginning balance of $74,576,153. We will receive revenue for the fiscal year of $122,169,923, while we expend $128,577,990, leaving us an estimated fund balance of $68,168,086. This would include changes of transfer between funds of $7,729,000 for our capital plan. So we've accumulated some of our fund balances. We're just simply spending those down as our projects are available. So where are we at? We're here with our preliminary budgets done. Our draft budget has been given. Our tentative has been received tonight. Then lastly, we'll come back on September 8th for final approval. All right, any questions from the Board of Education?
Any questions?
Yes, Dr. Lewis.
Forgive me for not understanding the nuts and bolts, but what's involved with the Alternative Learning Opportunities Program, and why is that funding changing?
Yeah, so some of it just has to do with available funds that were given. So we ran this program for multiple years, and it's basically a retention program for our students that may be at risk. And so we have those students that we invest more dollars in to retain them, to move them toward higher graduation rates and success. And so we receive more funding in that particular program than we have in prior years. And remember too, at one time we had that at the high school, and then it's now at the high school and the middle school. So those are some of the changes of our funding.
I thought that's what it was. I wasn't sure. So is there a red line where a threshold where the funding changes for that particular program for those students at risk? Or is there an allocation yearly, that quota, something like that?
Yeah, it's typically an allocation dollars. So we get those through the ROE through flow-through dollars. So when we submit our costs, we submit a plan up front of what we think it will cost, and then they flow the dollars to us. So last year was a year that, for the first time I can think of, that we got additional dollars from the ROE for those programs.
Any other questions? All right, as we heard in a subsequent meeting, we will have the final budget presentation, and in the prior meeting, we asked when this is due, and it's the end of September. So we have it in our first meeting in September. If there are any questions or concerns at that point, we do have a second meeting where we can approve that as the final budget, but for right now, we're targeting the first meeting in September. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on. Item number 4, public comments. We have one person who has signed up tonight, Mr. Brian Mayer. Mar, yes, full reserves.
Okay, all yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. You may remember me from a couple of months ago. I came in and discussed the same issue that we want to talk about tonight, specifically being TIFs, and specifically TIF 4, which we have other TIFs in the city of Geneva, which have you have gone ahead and approved. at your process of the JRB, all of those TIFs were pretty tiny by comparison. TIF 4 is nearly $200 million, as I'm sure you're all aware. The one of the things you'll see, the first sheet is from Brenda Shorey discussing what Sugar Grove did. And when I came in last time, I presented to you many facts, specifically very similar to what's going on in Sugar Grove with the Crown development. District 302 took the initiative and is calling, they're calling them out on the discrepancies that this TIF has. And there are many. In fact, TIF 4 in Geneva has all of those discrepancies and then some. You know, I brought these facts to you before, and nothing, no one moved. Nothing is, no one reached out to me. No one, I haven't heard anything in the media about it. It appears as if it's just going through. And generally, when I speak, I like to have my notes because I like to be succinct and have everything, make sure I cover everything. And the facts anymore, I've given you all the facts. Now I'm speaking from the heart. And you, how best to put it, I guess. 302 has gone ahead and done the right thing here. And I don't understand why no one in district in this on this board has done anything regarding TIF 4. TIFs are it's corporate welfare is what it is. You're giving away, your duty is to the students and the taxpayers. That's who you're here to represent. And by letting this go through, this grift, quite frankly, is what it is. They're taking advantage of the laws as they're written. And you're siding with the developers in this case. This property, SB Friedman, that's what they do. You show us the land, we'll show you the blight, okay? It's a scam. This was farmed for over 100 years. This is prime farmland. Any farmland now can be called blighted and taken off the tax rolls. There's a building. This property on the east side of Geneva is surrounded by buildings that have gone up over the last few years. Some of them have been empty for over a year. Not one of them took TIF monies. One of the buildings across the street on Route 38, across from where this MIF development is going to be, is paying $760,000 a year in taxes. I think, what, you guys get about 30% of that? Or I don't remember the number off the top of my head. $760,000 a year for a building that was built. That money is coming to you now. This TIF, pushing it off for 23 years, up to 35 years potentially, is, it's quite frankly, it's criminal what's going on with these TIFs. Well, it would have been the $760,000 for 1 year. Well, times the 8 buildings, right? So the dollar values that you're leaving on the table. I mean, you know, we were just talking about millions of dollars here. Maybe some, you're not having any shortfalls apparently, but you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And right there in front of you is the blueprint. District 302 is doing the right thing. They're not sticking it to the taxpayers and the students for the next 23 years potentially. The whole but-for argument, the whole that this property is blighted, it's a scam. So I ask you to please look at what I've given you this time. I talked with some of you before the JRB meeting Oh my God, what a joke that was. The JRB is supposed to be the guardrails, right? That's the thing that, oh, here's the chance for all the taxing bodies to come in. And let's see if you approve it or not. It was a joke. We were there. Not even half of the taxing bodies showed up. District 304 showed up. Seemed as if whoever it was chaired the meeting. Not a question was asked, except for the citizen representative, who was appointed by the mayor. So it was a ridiculous question anyway. Not a single question was asked. It was pushed through. I mean, I get it. It's an advisory body, but you could have dug your heels in a little bit right then and there and said, hey, this is not right. And they can do this to any land in Kane County now, any land in D304, take it right off the tax rolls. So I don't know. I just felt that I needed to vent, I guess, a little bit. Do I expect anything to happen? I mean, I came in every other time and I was nice and professional and everything, and well, that didn't work, so what the hell, you know? So thank you. Have a great night. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Marr.
Any questions about the tip? Anybody? Because boy, I've done a deep dive over the last few years. I can tell you a lot about it if you don't know about it. Yes.
Oh, you don't do that? Okay.
No.
Can't do that, sorry.
No.
All right, thank you. We'll review the materials. We appreciate you coming in today. All right, moving on to item number 5, legislative updates. I do not have an update tonight. Item number 6 is the superintendent's report, and Dr. Barrett is making his way over. So we'll give him a moment to do that.
Sorry, thank you. I forgot to grab the remote before my report tonight. My report tonight will be a little, probably a little longer than usual because there are a few substantial topics to discuss here. So please bear with me, and it's an opportunity for some discussion and to ask some questions if we need to. So let's see here. All right. Let's do that. Okay, first, and this will, some of my slides here will be different than what we were able to share last week. So we'll make sure we get that updated for everybody. But obviously some things have happened since we got that out. The first being we had a bit of excitement on Friday. It's every superintendent lives in fear of the bat phone ringing in the middle of the night. And when that work phone number goes off in the middle of the night, you're just like, oh my gosh. So there was a fire at Middle School North. And the good news is that everything worked how it was supposed to. All of our safety mechanisms and safety features that we've invested in over the years worked, did exactly what they were supposed to. And I'll say this again in a little bit, but our first responders, the fire department was amazing, and our operations staff was amazing when all of this happened. So here's kind of what we know. I thought it would be important for you all to hear this and be able to ask some questions about it. So about 4:15 in the morning, a carpet blower began to smoke. This is a pretty common practice pretty much in every school in the world, right? We are cleaning these carpets all summer because when the kids and the staff are gone, and after they do all the cleaning and the extracting, they use these specialized blowers that blow on the carpet to help dry that carpet out very quickly after it's washed. So one of those started smoking, and that smoke set off the smoke detectors and the fire alarm. That notified the fire department, and then got us notified right away as well. Eventually, that device then fully caught fire, and ultimately then the heat and flames from that device being on fire engaged the sprinkler head in the area, set the sprinkler off, and the sprinkler put the fire out just as the fire department was arriving and coming on the scene. So it was pretty quickly extinguished once once the sprinklers went off. And right now already restoration is underway. This picture right here is the space as of this afternoon. So it's already in pretty good shape. We are doing our due diligence to make sure everything is restored completely fully, and we have a restoration company out here as part of our insurance that's helping do all of that. So the damage was limited because everything worked how it was supposed to. And again, all things considered, this happened in the summer, in the morning. If this was a school day, it all could have been very different. So ultimately, we're fortunate, but it's also a good reminder why we invest in all those things. And a good reminder why we practice the things that we practice, with our staff and with our kids, because it all happened real quick, and that all can happen real quick in real life. So it's a good reminder for all of us why we practice those drills and do all those things. And again, I just want to thank our first responders and our operations team. Like, we got over there so quick, and the amount of staff who are just there helping get this place back in shape so quickly was really awesome to see. So that's that for now. And by the way, we feel very confident we'll be certainly more than fine to be able to start the school year. This shouldn't be backing us up or anything. And part of the restoration process allows us to do that. So the remainder of our staff can keep working on all the other summer things that we need to keep working on. So that's good as well. That is a team center. So that's, good question. So it happened in kind of an open common area on the first floor of Middle School North. So it's kind of, around a cluster of classrooms, and just behind kind of where I'm standing right there is a bay of lockers where some of the kids have their lockers. So nothing in any classrooms or anything like that. So that's also great news, just in that open common area.
Andy, one question. Did we think about going through the other blowers and just checking to make sure that
Absolutely.
they're doing
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely. Good question. Yes. And, again, it's one of those things because it's what you're supposed to do with those things, right? So, but yeah,
So, and
don't be.
only moved here in 2002. So, which building is older? No.
Sorry, South is older.
So, I know they basically mirrored in some way.
Yeah,
So
correct.
Do they have the same fire suppression system? The
Yeah.
doors closing automatically?
Yep.
Okay.
The system's all the same and all that stuff. And, we've been talking about how we're slowly kind of upgrading our fire systems, and that's expensive, and we're going to need to keep upgrading some of our fire systems, and that's expensive. And again, you couldn't get a better reminder as to why we need to do that. So, yeah. That being said, kind of leads into the next section. Our summer work, everything's going well and according to plan. Otherwise, the remainder of our capital projects that we've talked about a lot, we're seeing solid progress with no major concerns or delays. You see, that's the progress we've made in the high school library. We're excited about what that space is going to look like. You're well aware that we've, Todd referenced earlier, our transition with our financial system. Our teams in HR and the business office are obviously working very hard on that, and that seems to be going well. We've just formally initiated the start of our year-long transition with our student information system that you all supported and approved earlier this year. So, we just officially kicked that off, and we'll have a whole year to ramp up and get ready for that. As you know, there's a lot of ongoing curricular planning going that you've heard some about. And we're also preparing for our, school startup activities. It's crazy, but it's right around the corner. Everybody knows once you hit 4th of July, it just feels like you're sprinting downhill to the start of the school year. This is a topic that came up in our policy meet. We've actually discussed it previously, and it came up in our recent policy meeting. And so we thought with the summer meeting, this might be a good thing to bring up here and just get some feedback from the board and see what folks are thinking. So it's regarding our district hearing process. You know, as you know, in rare situations related to student discipline, policy calls for the board to take action based on the findings of a formal hearing. You know, it's not in all cases, but in specific situations outlined in policy, you know, the board has to take action following the findings of a formal hearing. So per our policy, you know, those hearings can be conducted by the board, or they can be conducted by a hearing officer who's appointed by the board. That hearing officer is somebody who would be appointed and you know, hired by the district basically to you know, be kind of that neutral third party. They ultimately provide an evidentiary report to the board for the board's consideration. Again, as noted in that first item, it's still the board's responsibility to take action on any kind of you know, findings, but a hearing officer would provide a formal report and conduct the hearing. So historically in our district, the board has always facilitated those hearings on its own. You know, I think all of you have been part of that at one point over the years. But many other districts do it the other way, right? And they have a hearing officer. So the question on the table that it kind of came up as we were reviewing these policies at the last policy committee is, do we want to explore the potential of utilizing a hearing officer in future instances? And this really, I think, is a board decision, a board discussion. I don't think it's a formal decision today, but I think this is an opportunity to have some conversation about it and see what you think. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. So I'd be kind of interested in feedback and thoughts on that.
I can share a little bit of what my thoughts were around that. I am in favor of having a third party person who conducts the hearings, simply because I think that we all in every situation in life carry bias with us, but it's a little bit different when we have students attending the same schools that are our children attending the same schools as some of these hearings that we hear from, that it might be a little bit harder to separate ourselves and our own bias in those situations. So I thought a third party hearing officer who kind of collects all that evidence might be more beneficial for all of us, considering several of us have kids in the district.
I was thinking the same thing. I don't know if she's channeling me, but sometimes our person out on this kind of discussion. But I agree that there is some implicit bias that can be introduced to this kind of discussion, and so far that some people have vested interests of different kinds, and it's kind of hard to remove themselves from that. So I think a third party would be better, if we can afford it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Anyone down here have any thoughts?
I'm kind of on the other side. We've had 3 maybe in the few years that I've been on the board. And I believe that if we were, I remember talking with somebody that said prior to COVID, this was an ongoing occurrence and it was part of the board, and there was many of these types of hearings. And if that were the case, and it was chewing up a lot of the timing of the board, and we weren't able to get to some of the other things that we needed to get to, I might feel otherwise. But I think we can handle the bias, or we can step out if it's and you know, not be part of that discussion if the parent feels that they're uncomfortable with that. But yeah, I'm not sure I see the actual need, the driving need right now for a third party to take over this issue.
The only, I mean, I don't know if, in the 3 that we did in the recent years, if our, the, whatever we came up with, at the end there, if it would have been different if we had a third-party hearing officer there or not, right? I think the administration did a nice job of bringing the information to us and gathering all that information, and then, yeah, I don't know if the decision that we made, at the end there would have been any different if we had a third party. But I do agree that having a third party officer, could be beneficial in certain instances. I mean, do we have to peanut butter spread on every one of them, or could there be certain ones where we need to have a hearing officer where we feel, I mean, could we do it by instance?
I think that's a good point. Having some sort of contingency, maybe, so you know, I dare say a contingency, so that might be something to trigger a need for a person for certain cases. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure I have a firm I'm one way or the other at the moment. To Paul's point, the number that we've had over the last years, to me, doesn't create like an urgent need necessarily to look into this. I would like to review kind of the cost to the district of what that might, kind of the bottom line on that. I like the idea of maybe, case by case. And then also maybe for us to improve our own self-practices, incorporating some kind of debriefing following these hearings, some checks and balances, or, is there someone to run things past? I'm not sure where in the process, but I would love to kind of look at those last couple hearings and, if this has been an issue, I certainly would not want that moving forward. If this is just a question of, hey, maybe this would help us. I just want to make sure we're being responsible if we're hiring someone on that there's an actual need for it.
I was thinking that, well, I have some procedural questions about it. So would it be something that they came up with a report and it's just strictly a report? Would they have a recommendation that went with it? And would we have to follow the recommendation, or do we still have our own ability to make a decision on action?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah, theoretically, a hearing officer would conduct the hearing, come up with that report, and my understanding is in most situations like this, they would make a recommendation. That being said, it would still be the board's purview to make a final determination, and as you know, sometimes the board might make a different decision than what a recommendation is. So, and there would still be that opportunity for the board to do, not only that opportunity, it would still be the board's responsibility to do that, right? You would have to do that and be able to ask more questions in that situation. So, yes.
So just asking, so is there a pool or a qualification for this kind of officer? Is that like some sort of referral service or something? Yeah.
Yeah, there's services out there that would provide some folks who do something like this, and so yes, and to Molly's point, one of the things I was writing down while you all were talking was getting some more information about potential costs, and potential availability of folks like that. Typically, one of the benefits, I think, is it's somebody with some legal background, so somebody who knows some of the explicit case law and legal things that we may not be as versed in. So, but yeah, getting the cost, I think, is definitely something we can do.
Yeah, and then when the hearing is held, the board members would not be in the room. It would just be the hearing officer and administration and the family and the student.
Yeah, typically that's how that works, but I'll get more information about the procedures and process as well.
Because my thought is also just perhaps they would want the board to be there.
Right.
If your student, your child, your family member
Right.
was having this hearing, it can go either way. You might be happy that there was a third party
Yeah,
person.
yeah, right.
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 But you also might feel like that this is the school board. This is part of what they're supposed to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think for me, hearing a little bit more information might be helpful, and we could discuss more.
Okay. This is helpful for me to get some information and be able to bring it back to you, so thank you. I do think, also the idea of, do you have a contingency, or do we have that available to us if we need it? I think that's a good question, and I think, right now, to Molly's point, it's not urgent. The reason I think it's worth talking about is when it is urgent, then we're not in a position to make a good decision about it. All of a sudden it's right in front of us, and then we don't have a venue like this where we can just have this conversation first. So if nothing else, being able to have this conversation and bring some information back, if that makes us better prepared to make that determination, about a contingency later, I think that's valuable.
One last comment, if I might. I'm just a little bit concerned about the getting further, distancing ourselves further away from
Yeah.
the issue and being isolated.
Yeah.
And trying to make a decision from an isolated position.
Yep.
And I think being a little more tactile with it might actually, it's a hard decision, and that's
Yeah.
what we're here for.
Mhm.
So that's just my comments.
Yeah.
If
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, Stephanie, if I could add too, I do understand that there are some of us that are parents to students in the district. So being, transparent to when there is maybe a conflict in a hearing, to whether it be to formally recuse ourselves, from the room, or, just to be that we are aware of our dual roles sometimes in the process, and being mindful of how the optics sometimes look. And if need be, if we're associated with the family in some way, to step out, and if that's a possibility.
Yeah. I think that's a good reason to look at some of these procedures, because kind of to your point, or, to Jackie's point, I haven't had that experience either, because I've only really ever been on this side of it. So maybe it's possible that you have someone who comes and facilitates it, but the board is still there and is still, has that kind of more tactile relationship with it. But you could do it with some more peace of mind, knowing there's someone there, facilitating the process in an appropriate way. So
I was just going to say, it was maybe an oblique way of saying it, but I believe truly that you should have, it's not necessarily a parachute, but you should have something rather than making a rash decision, because you don't have the process
Right.
in place. So I think it's important to definitely have some contingencies, so you are not making the wrong decision, even though you may think it's right. It just might be the wrong
Right.
decision.
Yeah.
It's the essence of a false positive or a false negative. There might be a problem, but it really isn't, and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah. It's that Eisenhower matrix, right? You never want to make a decision when it's important and urgent. And so, having the
Definitely.
having the opportunity to talk
Yeah,
about it.
urgency makes you get into mistakes.
Yeah. So thank you for being willing to have that conversation. I'll bring some more information. Next, and we'll need a little bit of time to talk about this too, but this has been a significant issue for our district, and certainly for Todd and myself in the last several weeks. And so I want to provide you with an update. We talked at our last meeting about this potential residential development. So I want to give you an update on some of what's transpired in the last several weeks, and as recently as just this afternoon. So, and especially in the light of some of our comments that we heard today. So, just as a quick reminder, this is the area in question. We've talked about this parcel a lot over the last year, because this was part of the potential Charles Farm development through St. Charles. So what's currently on the table is potential annexation by the village of Campton Hills, approximately 900 total residential units. All those units would be within the boundaries of Geneva School District 304. You can see all those parcels there on that map. And, every one of those parcels is within our school district's boundaries. Nothing in, even though, you know, there's sections out here. You can't see that. Is my mouse showing up there? I don't think it is. No. So like in the bottom left corner, there's a little open square there where there's no, or rectangle there where there's no parcels. Well, that's in Caneland School District. And up here, kind of above that dotted line, kind of halfway up the map, above that is St. Charles School District. So everything would be in Geneva 304. It's a 15 to 20 year timeline as we understand it, talking about 30 to maybe as many as 50 houses a year. And ultimately, you know, this would be hundreds of new students for 304. You know, probably a couple hundred per level, right? So a couple hundred elementary, a couple hundred middle, a couple hundred high school is our best guess at the moment. So, you know, where are we at now? We have participated in several meetings with the village and the developer in the last several weeks. And, you know, the district recognizes that there'll be impact of those hundreds of kids on the district, on our facilities, technology, transportation, on other resources. We talked a lot just earlier in Todd's presentation and in the finance committee about our capital needs and the needs of our facilities, and this will impact that, right? And so the district has been seeking cash considerations in lieu of land to kind of address those needs, right? Campton Hills, Village of Campton Hills, like the municipalities around here, including Geneva, St. Charles, etc., does have a land cash ordinance in place, and so that has been kind of the foundation of some of our conversations. Obviously, you know that we're committed to maintaining the highest quality education that we have here, and we're committed to maintaining it for new kids that would be developed. So, you know, we've been negotiating with the developer. That remains ongoing, and we think recently we've made some substantive progress, and we remain eager for a hopeful resolution, and we think we feel good about where we're at. So I think we're closing in on a potential agreement, and I want to share some information with you today. This is as recent as today. Not making a final decision today, but this is kind of where we're at, so I want to go through each of these facts here one at a time. So our most recent position would include a contribution to the district of $6,800 per residence in the development. Okay, so $6,800 per residence paid to the district at the time of permit. A land cash fee is generally upfront. You know, like all the money would be at once. This would be that amount per residence when they do the permit, file the permit for that particular residence. And it would have an annual inflationary adjustment tied to CPI, right? So if it's going to take 15 or 20 years to build it out, that would be, you know, we would build in accordingly adjustments based on that. So theoretically, you know, based on the 900 homes that we're talking about, this would amount to approximately 6.1 million before CPI growth, right? But in like today's dollars, $6.1 million over the course of development construction. So again, that's not factoring in the CPI growth because you don't know how many homes would be built in any given year and etc. So a lot of conversation and effort has gone on to get us to that point. So here's a wrinkle that we've learned more recently that is also important for us to know and have some context and background on. So at this point now, there's that first section, you know, the 6,800 per residence times 900, that's what gets you at your, you know, 6.1. We also understand that the Village of Campton Hills may be exploring a TIF for this project due to infrastructure needs, I think mostly associated with water and getting the water to the location. So we think they may be exploring that. What's important to note is that in our conversations, and there's some law built around this as well, but we would have this in any agreement, or we would advocate for this being included in any agreement. We would advocate that any agreement would ensure that Geneva 304 would receive our annual per pupil expenditure for each child generated by the development through the duration of the TIF. Okay, so if they do go in this direction, if this were to go in the direction of the TIF, what we would argue for is that like an actual hard count of students generated, right? So if in the first year there's 15 students that come to Geneva, the TIF or no TIF, we would get our per pupil expenditure for that year for each of those 15 kids. And in any given year, however many kids come to the school district, we would get that per pupil expenditure. That would come off and come to us before those TIF funds are then allocated for the other infrastructure piece. Because again, we're going to have to educate those kids right then. And so this might be what is different than maybe some other situations that we've heard about. And that's part of why we think this would be a good thing to build into any agreement. So I also feel it would be important if we get to a final place where we feel like we have a really sound agreement that both sides can be on board with. That really needs, this is big, this is a lot of dollars, and this would need to come to the board for some approval. So we don't know the timing of all of that yet, but I want to share that here because I think that there's potential for the need for a special meeting prior to our next meeting. If ideally this would all be sorted and before the formal annexation agreement goes forward, we would have an agreement in place that we felt good about and that they felt good about. So I just want to get that on your radar that there's a potential for that. So that's a lot. Are there any questions or thoughts now, or any information you want me to be looking into or trying information to gather for the future? Yes, sir.
So, excuse me. So, as you mentioned, infrastructure would include, among other things, getting water to the location. Are they talking about roads or things like that in the infrastructure to make it more accessible to our schools in this district?
For sure. So they'll have to do, they'll have to build that all out. They'll have to build that all out. Again, I think I shared last time. Let me go back to the map just to. You'll recall, kind of basically down here in the bottom right corner, you can't even see it. So there is no color because it's actually just off the map is Mill Creek School. The very bottom of this screen is Kesslinger Road. Okay. So Mill Creek would be. I'm sorry. I wish I should have a pointer. Well, I'm just gonna do this. Yeah. Mill Creek would be like right here. Okay. All the access to this whole neighborhood would be either here or here. Okay. So, and the county is working on all of this right now with this expansion of LaFox Road to Bunker Road. So that's something that we would have to be, they'd be building all these roads to access that. But I think the water, my understanding, is the thing that's the big expense for them. Yes, sir.
Could you go back to the last slide? Yeah, correct. Okay, so just so for my clarification, the $6,800 per permit, that happens regardless of the bottom 3 bullets.
Correct.
Am I correct so far? Okay, so it's
Correct.
the six.
If we all come to that agreement.
Yeah,
and
okay,
yeah.
just the way it's
Yep,
here, okay.
yep.
And then, so the last 3, what we're saying is whether it's a TIF or no TIF, however that works out, we would still receive our per pupil expenditure per student.
That's what we would build into that
Build into that
agreement,
agreement,
right? So
okay.
if, yeah, so we would build in to say, if there's not going to be a TIF, then,
Right.
it's just the whatever the revenue is that you're getting as the
From the
properties
taxing.
come on the
Exactly.
rolls, right?
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
there is, we would build in, if there is,
Right.
that we would get per pupil expenditure for the exact number of kids generated by the development.
Okay. And then, okay, I just need to think about that. And then what is our, maybe this is more a question for Todd, but what is our per pupil expenditure?
It's
Right.
just above 19,000 per student.
19,000.
I even knew that one.
What's that?
I even knew that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So then on the TIF, that won't affect us immediately, but it will affect us down the road because that can go on for 20 plus years. So then our tax revenue will freeze at the amount that it is this year or whatever year.
The revenue
TIF
for
was
that for
that
whatever area is
section.
TIFed would
So
freeze.
it's not an immediate impact. It will be a future impact as we're budgeting.
So I think a way I have thought about it is, and I think this is a good way to understand it conceptually. What it has the potential to do, right, is theoretically slow the growth of that per pupil expenditure, right? Because again, at first, there's a potential that maybe they got to give us more than we would have generated from the properties, right?
Right.
It's possible if there's a handful of houses, but they generate a bunch of kids. Such an agreement would mean they've got to give us that current per pupil expenditure, even if those houses aren't generating that much revenue, right? But you're right. Over the course of the development, when you get to 900 houses, it is possible that overall property value, well, not only possible, that's theoretically what they're doing, right? They would then have that overall property would be a net positive, so they're using that to pay off the infrastructure.
Right.
So, quick question.
Sure.
The 19,000, whatever the number is, per student cost. If you have a family with 3, it's roughly $60,000. That's not paid by the family. That's
Correct.
paid by the city.
No, that's just paid by all property tax.
That they bring in.
Yes, all the
But that
property taxes
we will
that
receive
we
it,
bring in.
but we would receive it from the city, not because with the TIF, if you do not have any children, your money still goes to the city, but we don't get anything
Well,
from that.
it doesn't go to the city. It goes to
Campton Hill.
yeah, it
Right.
goes to so in the TIF, right? That whatever that surplus increment is goes into that TIF fund, and this money that we would get would come out of that.
Can you explain how you arrived at the $6,800? Is that per their ordinance for their land cash?
Lots of sausage making.
Okay, all right, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, we worked off of the ordinance and all the formulas within their ordinance. We started there, and we're looking at other kinds of contributions that you could make, and then honestly, just a lot of sausage making back and forth, and to get to that place as of today.
So have we looked at other situations such as this that have happened more recently to kind of see what that amount has been? Like, is this an average amount that you would get, or do we know that? I mean, because we haven't had a development in Geneva for quite
Yeah.
some time, so it's hard to look
Yeah.
at historical.
Yeah, I think
for
it's I mean, I'll tell you, we never got this far with Charles Farm.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, so we did look at several. We looked at the county's land cash, we looked at the city of Geneva, and Andy's right, so there's two models of this. There's the attached and detached calculation, and we tried to arrive toward just one flat number for all, which is the sausage making process.
Right. So whether or not they're gonna have kids, you mean like just every house?
Mhm.
Okay, I see.
Yep, to get to a number that we felt was similar, reasonable, and comparable.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is, so, land cash is all about the municipality. They have an ordinance in place, right? Each municipalities is different. So Geneva has one version of it with certain numbers and certain formula. St. Charles has a different one.
Okay.
Campton Hills has a different one. So I think to answer your question, we never got quite this far with the Charles Farm issue, but this overall number that we're looking at, I think, is in line
Okay.
with
right, yeah.
about what we were looking at with that.
Right. And so those municipal codes, that kind of gives you the starting place. It's not like we can just say this is what we want, because there's some boundaries, some rules around that.
We can try. Yeah, we're welcome to try. Todd, were you going to add something to that?
Well, so one of the differences is it's based upon price per acre. So that's different in Geneva than it is in Campton Hills, where there's not a lot of growth to base it off of. It's also based upon a model either we provide that the village has that can stand up in court, or we simply come to an agreement with the developer that would test that as well and survive. So, and to Willard's point, I think he asked a question like, how do you dedicate streets and that kind of thing? This will ultimately come through an annexation agreement that will end up in a planned unit development. So there's two mechanisms that would lock in this contribution to the school district.
This is somewhat of a separate question, but do we know how many school districts Campton Hills feeds into?
I think there were 4 or 5 referenced
Okay.
in our land cash ordinance.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
We do know that it borders the Canelan School District and St. Charles.
Charles, yeah.
I also think it included Elgin.
Oh, a
there
little
might have
bit.
been more. Maybe way north, depending on how it grew. Because remember, it's a boundary. It doesn't mean the village
Yeah,
is there yet.
if you look at the boundaries of Campton Hills, it's kind of, this would be kind of the southernmost corner of it now, if they annexed this property, but it gets way up there, as it kind of snakes around, it gets up, I want to say Carpentersville, right? Yeah, I think so.
Is this even contiguous with some of the other parts of Campton Hills?
It has to be contiguous.
So it's not right now, is it?
They'll do it through the annexation process of bringing in parcels that connect.
Oh,
I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think, somewhere over here, there's a part that it would have to be contiguous, right? So it would touch somewhere. You might recall that was an issue, that was the same issue when St. Charles was going to annex it, right? St. Charles could annex it because it was going to touch up here in kind of a top corner. So, yeah. So thanks for that conversation. And if you have other thoughts or feedback, I'd certainly appreciate it. Again, we've been devoting a lot of time to this.
When are you looking to have something come back to the board? What's the
Yeah, I mean, I
timeline?
think ideally at our next meeting, but again, I don't know if we might need something sooner than that. I don't want an annexation agreement to go forward to the village of Campton Hills without us being able to, put our stamp on it. And I don't think they do either, candidly. So I think they're targeting early August, but I don't think they have a date set for that because of this whole process and negotiation. So, fair enough. All right. So, lastly, that just takes me to, we've talked about this already, but, we've done a lot of work about our demographic study and our capacity and had some great conversation in our retreat, and we're feeling in our retreat like we're in a good place, and I was going to be able to present some information to the board and the community about that this fall. If this does come through, right, that'll change some of that conversation, and it'll be an opportunity for us to have some different conversation, right? Because obviously, a new development, potentially adding hundreds of kids to the district will have some implications for some of that. So we're already looking at that a little bit, but just want to have that on everybody's radar because, you know, you always try to you plan and plan for contingencies as well as we just said about an earlier topic. So we may need to come back and reevaluate as a team. And lastly, just getting excited for our start during the school year where we're going to do everything together. And I just wanted to put that little plug out and reminder. We had some fun last week. Some of us making some fun videos. I put a little message out to you guys. If you were interested in being part of a little video, you just let me know and I'll get you doing something fun. So think about it. Let me know. I'd love to help facilitate that and have that be included in our opening. We can talk more.
Definitely. I think I'm speaking for the whole board that we should be involved in the video.
I don't know why I got this Peter Max kind of flashback looking at that. Next time, who Peter who? Then I'm aging myself.
Okay, that's it. I'll quit rambling. Thanks so much for the extra time tonight.
All right, thank you, Dr. Barrett, for your report tonight. Moving on to item number 7, board dialogue topics and pending action consideration. We have one item, the 2025-2026 proposed resource textbook adoption. Dr. Barrett, I'll let you start this one off.
Yeah, and I'll just pass it right over to Mrs. Sims, who can share a little more information about this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is just the recommendation for the approval to purchase those materials for the dual credit courses with College of DuPage and Waubonsee Community College. As you may recall, we shared earlier that the resources had not yet been selected by the college for those courses. The courses were already approved, and that was brought to the board earlier, or actually later last school year. So we're looking for those to be approved. And then also there was a new AP textbook that was adopted. So those are the resources that we're asking for you to please consider for adoption tonight.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the?
This is the same from your previous presentation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, same text.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to approve the textbook adoption.
Second.
Any other questions? All right, please call the roll. No, I was doing that after we made the motion in a second. That's the way I do it, so I get hung up.
Thank you.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you. That has been approved. Moving on to item number 8, work study topics and future action consideration. We have 2 things tonight. First, we have policy updates. We have the first reading on, we have, 25 policies under the first reading. If you have any questions or comments on that, they should be directed to
Yeah.
Ms. Bellino, unless you have anything you want to say right now.
Yep, just a couple quick notes. So there's several policies, sorry guys, but a lot of them tie together because of 2 big policy. One was a change and one was a new policy. So I just wanted to direct your attention to that. So Title IX, there was a Supreme Court challenge based on some Title IX changes, and Title IX got reverted back to a lot of the way it was written in 2020. So that changed some of the other policies that we have changed over the past few years. So just pay attention to policy 2260, uniform grievance procedure, and policy 2265, Title IX grievance procedure, because it kind of explains that Title IX information for you. And then the other one is policy 7255. That's students who are parents, expectant parents, or victims of domestic or sexual violence. That is a brand new policy. A lot of the other policies in this chunk relate to that one. So if you want to read through that to fully understand it, and then you'll kind of see why some of the other policies were changed. Just that may help as you guys are going through all 25.
Does anyone have any other questions at this time? Okay, look for this to come on an upcoming meeting. Item number 2, get my notes here, make sure I say it right. read it. The 2025-2026 O&M Capital Improvement Plan. What's up next? Mr. Latham.
Okay, thank you. So this has gone through the facility task force, and this represents the 25-26 capital projects. As you can see, covers a majority of our schools, Geneva High School, Middle School North and South, our elementary schools at Harrison, Mill Creek, and Fabian, and then lastly, the Transportation Center. So we just wanted to put this before the board tonight so they could actually see some of those areas of improvement and some of the examples of what's going to be upgraded. So the high school has some greenhouse, drainage, some parking upgrades and replacement, a little over 2.3 million. The boiler plant has some fire rating upgrades. So essentially this is a wall or barrier needs to be placed in there for better fire protection at the boiler plant. North will have 2 boilers and 2 hot water heaters, and then some category A items. Those items are some fire rated doors and some alarm system upgrades. And South has an emergency generator that we need to replace. It's outlived its useful life. We do have some fire alarms as part of our life safety and some window blinds that we're going to be putting into the school. The elementary school at Harrison has 2 hot water heaters and some components and some valves. They're basically some RPZ valves for reduced pressure zone requirements. At Mill Creek, we're going to do some masonry work and some tuck pointing in addition to some of the LED lightings. Also at Fabian with some mechanical repairs. And then lastly, the maintenance pit at the Transportation Center has a significant amount of rust on it, and it makes it a little more difficult to operate. So in total, we've got about $8,034,379 of capital funds out of the capital fund project that we'll be funding, and $126,647 worth of projects out of the Life Health Safety Fund. So we just wanted to make the board aware of that and see if you had any questions on that. And then I did add a little piece about for the board on our 10-year life plan that we're currently working on with our architects that kind of lay out that next 10 years of our projects for life health safety.
So if I could comment from the task force. So about a year ago, we did basically the same thing. We brought this to the board. The board approved it, and it allowed the O&M group to really get a jump on purchasing, hiring contractors, getting ready for what they're doing right now. And part of the reason why the projects are moving so smoothly, knock on wood, right now, that is because they had good planning. Everything was delivered prior to it, and the idea is basically the same thing. These projects, if you look at them, the majority of them will be done during the summer of next year. The LED lighting and something like that will go on through the year, you know, as we did with North, with Geneva Middle School North. But so in those 2 elementary schools, that will go on during the year, and some of these may get done at certain times, or parts of them be done when kids are not in the schools. So this is basically to give the O&M group a running start for next summer. And that's we decided to bring it here, let everybody look at it, talk about it, ask questions, and then probably in a month, next meeting, we'll bring this back for the board to approve, so that the O&M group can for sure start going out and placing commitments for equipment and contractors.
And this was, thanks, Paul. This was one of the things we were, we feel really good about being able to do this now, right? Because we were ending up behind the 8 ball with some projects in the past, because some of these, they were coming to the board and coming to the public so late, and then it was the spring, right before the summer, and you're trying to get approval for some of these. And so we like this cascade very much of making these decisions now for the work that's coming up.
Any other comment I would make is, by doing it now, it allows the O&M group to shorten the period of time that these projects will take. And if you step back a year and a half or 2 years ago, we actually had a discussion at the board about extending the summertime and delaying the start because we had to make sure we got all the projects done. So this is part of that process to making sure that we're able to move efficiently and get the projects done, so it doesn't impact when we start next school year.
I would like to point out too that this is part of the first year of our leveling process for our capital projects. So between the facility task force and Brian Peterson, our new director. This is the first year, so remember this year we just finished was over $14 million. So this starts our process. We're trying to keep a more level base of capital projects, and so this will be the first year of that. Yes, Dr. Hooks.
So, and thank you, Paul, for making those comments about the good work that the facilities task force has been using and giving us a timeline. But every time I hear about engineers looking into things of school, there are three prongs, and I've worked in school systems. There's air quality, lighting, and the part that gets left out is background noise. So I see all these things, and I appreciate you bringing it to us attention, but are the engineers looking at things like sound abatement? Because even though it's not something you can see, it is part of what we consider quality school. If you have, and that's for staff as well as students, air quality, good lighting, which I'm glad we are moving ahead on that, but also background noise. So are the engineers looking at, I know it's a capital thing, I'm not trying to add any costs, but is that something that they're looking at?
So they are. So I'll give an external example first. So we had a chiller that we're putting in at one of our schools. So to make sure the environment outside the school and for our neighbors is good, we've put in some suppression systems for some of that acoustic and noise. Internally, I believe, Dr. Barrett, right, we're starting to look at some of those and some testing that's being done and some measures that we're putting in as well.
Yeah, for sure. I would even add, as an example, I showed you for this year, the library at the high school that they're working on right now. Last time I walked in there, all of the sound abatement panels were in a big stack because they were just getting ready to put those up, right? So that was part of that process when they're evaluating all of this, you know, whether they need panels or whether you need to put something in some of the new handlers or something like that. That is something that they're looking at.
And that's a very obvious one. I'm glad to know that they're doing that for the library, of course, rightly so. But there are sources that we just kind of, and I know LED lighting is a superb choice because we're not dealing with ballasts and things like that making a lot of noise like the fluorescent lighting of the past. However, there are some, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity last summer to visit some of these schools, but there are some schools that do have turbulence. And I can tell you that I'm not a mental health specialist, but I can just say from my practice people I've seen teachers, I've seen children that have been impacted by background noise. One teacher in particular who developed vocal nodules because she was trying to speak over, in her particular school district, mind you, not here, because it was affecting her psychologically because she was finding herself strained and all this kind of thing. So we just have to, as you work with engineers, it's not just the source, the obvious sources like the library, but also there are things like turbulence like I have behind my head here. And you can measure that. And there are ANSI standards, ANSI being, of course, American National Standards Institute, for classroom noise and other rooms. So band room, I know is taken care of that, for sure, yeah. But I'm just saying that as the engineers are looking at this in the grand scheme of a capital plan, we want a quality understanding of what's happening, the severity of these things. That's all I was talking about. Yeah.
So this is my first official month of being in charge of
yeah.
operations of BDC, so I deferred the question to Dr. Barrett, who was responsible until the 30th of June. So
I
he
would
was a little more involved in the conversations with our staff.
I would add, I think it's a good question to bring up, and we're going to be bringing a big 10-year plan. And when we do that, we can have the architects and engineers and Brian answer some of those questions for us when they bring that and share it. So I think that's the right place and there's the right people to do it. So good question.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett. Could you?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Thank you.
Moving on, item number 9 is information. We have the board meeting presentation schedule and the FOIA requests and board correspondence. There's no discussion required unless anyone had any questions. Hearing none, moving on to item number 10, the consent agenda. We have 7 items tonight. The personnel report, resignations, retirements, leave requests, changes in assignment, FTE, and new hires. The monthly financials for June. Gifts, grants, bequests, $1,500 from Grace Power and Control LLC for GHS Athletics for team supplies, uniforms, and needs. Gifts, grants, bequests, $35,577.81 from the Geneva Academic Foundation for teacher wish list items for classrooms. gifts, grants, bequests of $4,500 from State Bank of Geneva, $1,500 Ken's Auto Center, $1,500 DNA Fox Valley Plumbing, and $1,500 for athletics team supplies, uniforms, needs. Sorry, I did that wrong. It was a total of $4,500 from State Bank, Ken's Auto, DNA Fox Valley Plumbing for GHS Athletics. Thank you. Item 6, approval to sell 20 district buses of various passenger sizes. And item number 7, the GEA Memorandum of Understanding. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Right, consent agenda passes. Item 11 is board member comments and reports. I'll start down here with Stephanie.
Great, thank you. I was part of the communications task force meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. It had been a little bit since we had gotten together, so it was great to get to speak with our community members who are part of the task force and the administration, and then Paul and I are on that committee, or that task force representing the board. We talked about several different topics. I'll go over just a couple, but one was the way that the district will be handling celebrations going forward and having some public recognition around celebrations, whether that be Black History Month, Women's History, Pride Month, different things like that, and just making some acknowledgement and celebration around those going forward on some of our social media sites. So excited to see some changes there that we've had so far and how that will continue to go throughout the year as we add on more celebrations throughout the year. We also have a new newsletter design, so everyone gets a newsletter from the district in their mailbox throughout the year, and that's really to help us reach mainly audiences that don't have kids in school so that they can kind of see what's happening in Geneva 304. So that's going to have a new design and hopefully grab people's attention a little bit more so that they can stay in tune with what we have going on in the district. And then we just had some continued discussion around our progress on communication in line with our strategic plan and different ways that we're going to continue to try to improve communication and pull in more and more audiences as we're going out throughout the next school year. That's about all I have for tonight.
Yeah, I just want to thank Todd for your granular and very detailed presentation for finance, and also want to thank the finance committee for asking the questions that some of us may not be privy to. So I appreciate having this brought to the surface so it can be a lot bit clearer for all of us as we digest this. Thank you.
Right, along here, Dan.
Yeah, not too much. I think first of all, I want to thank the two folks that came for the public comments to come in and speak again. And I think the only thing that I think that I probably want to comment on that is it's not that we haven't thought about it or aren't thinking about the issues that was brought forward tonight. I think in the last time, I think I asked Andy a couple of questions behind the scenes and afterwards in terms of just for my own clarification. So I think we're all aware. It's not that we are ignoring the topic or not interested in the topic, but it's something that we may be conversing about directly with Andy. So anyway, just want to make that clear. And then just think about the development as the board liaison for the all sports booster. I would like for the development to have some athletes as well to help our school district. Can you put that in the agreement?
I'll see what I can do in the sausage making process. We'll see what we can include.
Other than that, no. Next board meeting is August 11th. That's my birthday, so maybe people can come early maybe I'll bring some pizza or something. Cool. Yeah.
I don't have too much to add, just a thank you to everybody working on our projects over the summer and all the prep that goes in for the next school year. Thank you to Todd for your work on the budget and Andy for the information on the project development, and to be continued on a lot of those conversations. So thank you.
Not much also, I think, spent a lot of time on the, capital plan for next year. I think what will be a lot more work that we'll have to do is when we bring the 10-year plan and go through that. So just giving you all a little bit of fair warning on that. Thank you to Stephanie. I'm not gonna say anything else about the, communications meeting because she covered that very well. But also thanks to Dan for his comments about, the people who have come in and during the public comments and talk. And I know there's times when we can speak, and this is it, and I appreciate that Dan brought that forward. And it's not that we didn't want to respond, it's just this is the right time to do it.
All right, I just wanted to send a thank you out to our first responders for responding to the fire at the middle school. I know they probably think it's just their job, but it really means a lot to all of us that they came out and were able to stop the fire. Thanks to O&M for making sure everything's getting back up to speed. Really, there's so many people. Thanks to Mr. Baker's team, because you have drills and you know what to do when this kind of thing happens, and we were prepared for that. And folks who had to go and talk to the insurance company and start that whole process, and then finding someone to come and fix up the facilities after. So that was a big thing. I don't think that they get enough credit for what they do, but yeah, they got up in the middle of the night too and had to come and respond. And so I'm glad that it all kind of worked out as kind of we thought it was going to, or I'd hoped it could be, and we'll be ready to go when school starts. And that's all I had.
Andy, I'm picturing an old rotary phone on your nightstand that
Yeah.
blinks red when.
That blinks red, yeah.
Exactly.
That's funny. All right, nothing under notices and announcements. We do have a need to go into executive session to consider matters pertaining to appointment, employment, compensation, or discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific individuals. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you, everyone. We will move into executive session.